Live from the Tiki Lounge.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's good to have you guys. I know a couple of people are still joining us, so we'll wait just a second. Thanks for taking some time out of your Wednesday to join us. I know you guys have a lot of things pulling at your attention, and so we do not take it for granted that you have chosen to spend some time with us on a Wednesday. I wish that we were all in Fort Lauderdale at a normal lounge session, but this is the next best thing. And we have what we think is a great session for you guys today. So we're going to be doing a lot of discussing today. We're going to be putting you guys in breakout rooms to discuss the topic of redefining programming and engagement. This, as you guys know, is your team. We have Crystal Wallace, membership, Senior Vice President of Membership and Chapter Relations. Karen McMullen, Senior Director of Membership and Chapter Relations. Myself, I'm the Manager of Chapter Support and Development located in Florida. Kelly Schild is Chapter Support and Development Manager in the Midwest. And then we have Kelly Perkins, who is our Assistant for Governance and Chapter Relations. So this is your team, and if you ever need anything, you know that you can reach out to any of us. We want to thank our sponsor, which is CAM-ICB, and Virginia is actually going to be with us next week to talk about some exciting things that they have going on with CAM-ICB. So you guys can look forward to that. Just a couple housekeeping items. If you aren't talking, if you would please mute yourself so we don't get any background noise. If you have a question, be sure that you raise your hand or use the chat area. Kelly or Karen is monitoring the chat, and so if you would like to post anything in there, feel free. And then if you have any tech issues, Kelly is our girl, so you can message Kelly Schild in the chat area for that. So just to get us kicked off for today, I found this quote that I love. It says, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf." I think it's no secret right now that things are ever changing, but we're learning to ride the waves of change, right? We are so incredibly proud of the chapters. Our team talks about it all of the time, how you guys have, I'm going to say the word pivoted. I know we use that word a lot, but you guys have pivoted your events, your programs to virtual. It's just been incredible to watch everything that you're doing. And I mean, I get the FSAE chat feed and stuff like that. And you guys, so many of you are just way ahead of the game. So I want to tell you right off how proud of you guys we are. COVID has changed how we work with, how we educate and engage our members, and some of those changes will be long lasting. It's not been easy to deal with the impact of this abrupt change to our plans. Many of us had to have had to change our plans completely for the entire year. But on the bright side, we're building new strengths, and by being willing to experiment and change the way that we've always done things, we are progressing. And so that is all about redefining, your programs and engagement, which is what we're going to talk about today. So just a little bit about redefining programs. This time is a good time to look at and make courageous changes. So looking at your programs, it's an opportunity to assess where you might have fallen short in the past and learn how to improve programs in the future. This is a great time when you guys are having to cut back on programs to really take a look at what's been successful, maybe what needs to be sunsetted, and what you need to move forward and enhance. And also, you're going to have to consider continuing new programs that were established just for this time in the future. We were just forced into doing events virtually. We've known for a long time that it's something that's been needed, but with COVID, we were forced into it. But I really think that it's something that we're going to have to look at to continue in the future. And so I would encourage you guys, if you have not started that conversation, to start talking to with your boards about it. Why so much talk about engagement? It was interesting as I get these daily emails from ASAE and other people. Almost every day, there's some article about engagement. Engagement. How are we engaging our members? How are we engaging our employees during this time? Just so many. I think just in 10 minutes, I came across 30 titles of engagement. But it's really important right now because for so long, I think we've measured engagement by how many butts are in the seats. And what I mean by that is how many people are attending our meetings. And as a former executive director, I so did that. If I didn't fill the room up, I was disappointed, but I wasn't paying attention to how many connections were made in the room, the bright lights that went off, during the sessions. And so I think now it's forced us to realize that there are so many other ways of engagement than are just people attending those events. Right now, we're needed more than ever to guide and support our members. So it's really important for us to engage them. There's so many things, like I mentioned earlier, that are fighting for our attention. And we want CAI and your chapters to be one of those go-tos that they go to for their information. Member engagement is essential for growth. We know that members who are engaged, they keep renewing, and they also help you increase membership via word of mouth because excitement is contagious. So those members who are excited about what you're doing are going to help you grow the chapter. So engagement is extremely important always, but really now more than ever. And the way we define it has to change. And so that's what we're going to allow you guys to talk about today. Engagement begins with new members and keeps going. I've heard many of you guys say that you are still continuing to get new members during this time. And the way we may engage them before is really different now because they can't go to an event, and get connected to people. So they join, and then what? So it's really important to make sure that you're setting a positive tone with a big hearty welcome. So I want you guys to think about, how are you engaging your members when they first come on board? So think about that. And it doesn't stop there. We have to make sure we're engaging the people that we've had on for a year that are talking about renewing. 5 years, 10 years, we have to look at engagement on all of those levels. So I think it's really important to talk about, what do your members need to know today? And what problems are they struggling with that you have the solution to? And you may not know the answer to that question, but I love hearing some of the chapters say that they're surveying their members to find this out. So I think it's important to ask and then listen. So you have to ask these questions in order to know, how to define that engagement. And how can you show them they are part of a large community of like-minded peers? So these are just some things that I want you guys to think about as you guys are discussing today. We are going to break you guys out into some breakout rooms, and we have 4 questions for the day. We've broken them up into 2 breakout segments. So we're going to give you guys 2, and we're going to give you about 15 minutes to discuss. And then we're all going to pull you back in, and we're going to let you share what you've discussed. So here are your discussion questions. First, member engagement takes many forms, and in-person or virtual events are only 2 of them. How are you engaging members in addition to these 2 forms? And additionally, virtual events have changed the dynamic of benefits delivery. Going forward, will your chapter offer both virtual and in-person? And is virtual now an expectation of members? And welcome back. All right, guys, so hopefully you guys had some good conversation, and now we want to take the time to hear from you guys to share out to the groups about all of the good things that you talked about. So The first question was member engagement takes many forms, and the in-person and virtual events are only 2 of them. So how are you engaging members in addition to these forms? So outside of virtual events, how are you engaging your members? Anyone want to share? Go ahead, Robin.
In our group, we talked about the use of video, and someone, I can't remember who in our group, Cal, I think mentioned that they were doing commercials for business partners. So those could be, appearing on websites and things like that. I talked about our chapters thinking about actually doing in person, but at a park, so that it's outside. We've also talked about emailing. Our board emailed every one of our members individually and gave them just a hello email to see how they were doing, and included the links to our virtual programs that we did have, and just to see if they had any questions about other stuff. Our group talked about delivering gift cards to our members, to Grubhub or things, so that if we do have a program, they can also eat at the same time and engage them that way.
Awesome.
So we talked about various things like that.
Awesome. I love that you talked about the personal touch and them reaching out to the members individually. I think that goes a long way, just letting them know that we're here for them. So Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
We did also say that we might bring an ice cream truck around to our community managers, because we know they're very stressed right now. So instead of like delivering yard signs or something like that, we're investigating pricing and logistics on that right now.
Oh, that's awesome. You'll have to share with the group how that turns out. I love that. I would be so excited to see the ice cream truck roll up.
I know, especially if it plays a song and all the things.
Exactly. Exactly. Anyone else want to share?
Okay, we just started, we're going to start doing flamingo flockings. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. Yeah, so we're going to start doing that. We're calling it our CEI Fierce Friends, like flock somebody. So we're making little, we have little flamingos that we're going to put on people's desk as they get flocked by one of their CEI Fierce Friends. So that's kind of something that we're doing this summer, trying to, even though we can't really see each other in person, but trying to still stay connected with the people that they care about in the chapter.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, so our group actually came up with a ton of stuff. One was tailgating, which I think is awesome. I don't know about all of the other high schools in the nation, but I know my high schoolers like to do that, and I didn't ever think about adults getting together to tailgate. So I think that that's a great option that that we'll certainly consider. Also, I didn't get a chance to say this, but surveys. I think that even if you are putting out surveys just saying how would you feel if, I think it's a way to connect and at least let your members know that you're thinking of them, that you're thinking of things to do, that you're not just out there like, enjoying a break, right? It's like, we are trying to figure this out, and here's a survey to get some of your feedback. So we plan on sending out some surveys here pretty soon, just to let people know that we are thinking about what to do in the future. Another person said that they were going to network at a small zoo, certainly using waivers. So holding outside events where it's a bit more practical is one of the keys. Let's see. We have had people do, live bands, mixologists, things of that nature, and it hasn't been very successful. So it seems like most chapters, our members want to be together. And so how do you do that? Well, outside is probably the best option. And then certainly adding in some restrictions to that. And a lot of our chapters are going to continue with the events that they already planned for outside, but keeping all of this in mind.
Awesome. Thank you, Bridget. I'm seeing in the chat someone is talking about trunk or treat, which is a great idea as well. And Kate said that they're running a drive-in theater for a family event, and they can communicate through the speakers. I love that, Kate. That's awesome.
Debbie Lee also mentioned we were thinking of doing events around town with food trucks and business partner booths.
Very good idea.
From the notes, I see some reference to podcasts. I know a couple of our chapters are doing that. Did any of those chapters that are doing podcasts, would you like to speak to that? Cheryl, Tony, I'm going to call you guys out.
Sure. I have to leave in a minute or two, but I'll just quickly add, we've been doing podcasts. I think this is our 4th year. We did one about a month ago on pools, and it was the most listened to one we have ever done. Obviously, that was a hot topic. So it's a great way to engage. We typically don't have a huge audience, but for that one in particular, and we just put one out yesterday on reopening fitness centers. So I think that's going to get a lot of play as well, so to speak. So it's a great way to put short bits of content, educational content out there.
Yeah, and you know, that's kind of going back to that engagement and what is engagement. You know, like I said, it's not the butts and seats, but right now it's like, how many views are you getting, you know, from what you shared on Facebook? You know, how many likes, how many clicks, you know, all of those things are one way we can really measure engagement right now as well. I'm going to call out someone, Rachel. I saw something recently that you are doing about hosting virtual office hours. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I think that's a great way to engage your members as well.
Yeah, so I started doing virtual office hours. You know, the reality is that I'm available all the time. But we just got a little image off Canva of like an open door with a question mark, and I'm just like, I set a Zoom meeting for an hour on Wednesdays 9 to 10. Like if you know, have a question about the chapter or something, like come visit us in our office hours. And at first I was kind of like, well, this is silly, like they could call me anytime they want, but something about like putting it out there like that makes it different. So far it's been good.
Good. And are you finding that people are popping into your office hours like at the same time? I mean, so then they get to chat?
No, not yet. The first one I had a couple of people pop in at different times, and then this last one I didn't have anybody. But I think, you know, I'm working, and I'm off camera until somebody comes in, so it's not like that big of a deal, and it doesn't actually take that much extra time.
Right.
That's a great idea. That's a really good idea. Thanks, Rachel.
No problem.
Anyone else before we move on to the second question? All right, so I would encourage you guys to continue that discussion with your board and really think outside the box. I know we still, you know, are really, when we talk about this, we're still talking about ways we can gather, you know, and either virtually or together. And I get it. People want to be together, but I would encourage you guys to think about the other ways of engagement, like the podcasts, like, you know, engaging them through content, you know, so things like that, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in our next breakout session. So the second question is, virtual events have changed the dynamics of benefits delivery. Going forward, will your chapter offer both virtual and in person? Is virtual now an expectation of members? What are your thoughts on that?
We will definitely continue to offer both because we have members as far away as Wichita and Kansas City. So we found that our members found value in doing the webinar, so we will definitely continue to do it.
Yes, I agree. Especially those, you know, of you guys who cover like a whole state. It's a great opportunity for you guys to continue to engage. There's that word again. Members who are, you know, on the perimeter of your territory. So that's great. Breakout 2 discussion questions are, how are you repurposing content as a form of engagement? Not only chapter content, but headquarters resources as well. Last week, when Amy and Don spoke, they shared with you guys lots of resources that you can be reusing and repurposing. And then headquarters websites advocacy pages contain volumes of information for members. Is your chapter using this to engage members? And if so, how? So now we're going to send you guys off. Welcome back, everyone. We were spying on the chat a little bit in Google Docs, and we were so excited by some of the responses that you are giving, because a lot of the stuff we talked about last week and a lot of stuff you guys have been doing. So let's talk about the first one. How are you repurposing content as a form of engagement? Not only chapter content, but headquarters resources as well. Does anyone want to speak to that?
I'll speak for our group if you want.
Yeah, great.
We spoke a lot about what's going on in California because Kelvin had mentioned that they're building a part of their website to house videos of their recorded sessions. And that seems like a really great way to, make those sessions work for a longer period of time. What was interesting, I think that everybody found interesting, was that they're free to those who have already paid for the event if they want to go back and review something. But for those who didn't attend, they're actually going to charge them, and then they'll be able to take a test at the end and get continuing ed. And just in fairness, Kelvin said to ask Rachel if any of this is true because it wasn't clear.
Sorry.
Yes, all of that is true.
That's funny. Thank you, Cal. That's great.
I had taken myself off mute so I could say that Melanie had her hand raised. Sorry for my little outburst there.
Thank you. Go ahead, Melanie.
We haven't done this, but when you're talking about repurposing and using National's website or even your own, I know in the our main conference a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was mentioned earlier about the commercials or tidbits that you could record. Why not take successful articles that you've published in your publications, or because they're not always just written, and just reread them in a quick fashion like this to say, here's some tips on this, this, and this. But instead of, I said, we're all busy, and to try to think of creating what you want to say from scratch can be intimidating and overwhelming because we already all have enough to do. Why not pull in a resource of something that's already written and just revamp it into a short 1 minute, 30-second video and post it via social media?
I love that, Melanie. That's a fantastic idea. It goes along with something we were talking with our marketing and communications team with last week too. They were talking about common ground and how, you don't just have access to the current issue of common ground. You have access to the past issues. So if you guys are looking for content, it might be not be new content, but it's fresh content because they haven't seen it in a while. I would encourage you guys to go back to those common ground issues as well. So, and you could even use that, for that, Melanie, to kind of expound upon them.
And why not engage those people who maybe wrote the articles within your chapter? And that's getting back out to your members, right? To say, hey, can you take a 30-second clip out of this article you wrote?
The other thing you could do to kind of expand on that too, I really love that idea, Melanie, is to do a short clip on social media and then say, for more information, go to our webinar or podcast, or there's a article in Common Ground or a book on that topic. So that would further engage them as well.
Yeah, I love that. Give them a little teaser. Awesome. Anyone else have anything to share on that topic?
Emily, I think one of the things that came out in our group's conversation was the concern that everybody has to be super careful when repurposing content from National. A couple of people brought up stories of where something was contained in an article or content that they got from National, but in their actual state, it was actually illegal to do exactly that. So I think just paying attention to make sure the content is relevant to your state, is super important.
Exactly. And I know I've talked with a couple chapters who do include like a little disclaimer or something, that says, please check the local laws in your state, in regards to this issue or something like that. So very good point, Vishnu. Thank you for sharing. Anything else on that first question? I saw you guys said HOA Resources has a great piggy bank for that, which I love. Anyone want to expound upon the exchange? I got really excited on that one. Anyone want to talk about how they use the exchange for this?
So that was my little note. So our chapter I will go on to the exchange and look at the posts that are getting the most engagement. And then I will say, all right, editorial committee, here's a great question. Like how can we answer this on our own, coming from our chapter experience? And then I'll put it in our magazine and on social media. So we just kind of take those questions, because sometimes it's hard to come up with something new and relevant. And hey, the exchange is a great place to get those ideas.
That's a great point, Bridget. And going back to Vishnu's point as well, maybe it's not repurposing the whole article that you see, but it can give you an idea, and it can, you can expound upon it for your state as well. So, all right. Anything else pressing before we move on to the next one? I want to give us some time to answer that one as well.
I have a quick question. So there was a period of time when we were kind of getting spoon-fed exactly what Bridget does. And we were getting a list of here's this week's, the last few weeks, most common topics. And I haven't seen that in a while, but that was really helpful. So like, rather than all of us going in to search through and find what Bridget's doing, everyone remember that? Like that was coming for a while, and I haven't seen it in a little while.
I think it took a back seat with COVID.
Okay.
Right, Emily?
It did. Yes, that was me. And I will, I was giving you guys those monthly. Amy, Amy's people were providing that to us. So I will get back on that. If that's helpful for you guys, I'm really excited to hear that it was, because, you put out that information sometimes and you just cross your fingers and hope that you guys think it's helpful. So hearing that, I will get back on it. So thank you for sharing that.
And we used it for sure. I don't know about everybody else, but our chapter did.
That's great to know, Cheryl. And Emily makes a really good point. Sometimes we don't know, what you guys like or don't like. Don't be afraid, any of you, if you're a CED or a president-elect, to be like, this is helpful. This may not be as helpful. Try to be a little nice about that. But we need to know, because if it's not helpful, then we don't want to take the time to do it. We want it to be helpful to you.
Yeah, thank you. And we just have a couple minutes left. We want to be mindful of your time, but I saw a lot of light bulbs going off last week as Dawn was talking about the advocacy stuff. So tell us a little bit about if your chapter is using those advocacy pieces to engage members, and if so, how? Not everyone at one time. Anyone want to speak on that?
So since no one else is speaking up, I will. We will go onto the advocacy blog, and then Dawn said that this was okay, so I have been doing it. Whatever is relevant and timely, I'll just copy and paste a blog content and put it in our magazine. I have had to be very careful about, well, if we don't publish until a month from now, will this still be timely? So I do have to watch it when it comes to that regard, but it's great content. And then I just sent out last week after our last meeting, an email to our members saying, like, here's where you can find or track legislation. Here's the link to it, pointing everything back to national. But I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize that we do have that capability to very easily track legislation, find your state representatives, things of that nature. So I'm plan on doing that about once a month now moving forward.
Awesome, thank you. And Robin said that advocacy is now a tab on their website. So I love that. Anyone else? Parting thoughts on that? Again, I've been preaching about Media Manager a lot lately, but for those of you who are presidents or president-elects, the CEDs and the chapter staff have access to what we call Media Manager, and it's where we post a lot of ads, videos, things like that. So just remember that you have that as well as the YouTube channel for CAI, and you can repurpose any of that as well. So, all right, guys. Well, I think it's been a great conversation. It's something that you guys can continue with your boards. And so I'm going to share my screen because we have an exciting topic next week as well. Next Wednesday, we're going to be talking about Somewhere Over the Rainbow, A Bright Future for Chapters, 2021 Strategic Planning and Operations. And our very own Crystal is going to be leading that discussion. And so I think it's going to be we've kind of built upon, each session has built upon each other. And so I think next week we can take a lot of the things we talked about, and tie a pretty bow on it.
If you have any questions, please contact a member of the Chapter Relations team or email chapterlearning@caionline.org.